Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Imperial Japanese Navy's Tier 5 destroyer, the Minekaze. The Minekaze was something of a break in tradition for Japanese naval architecture. This was the first example of a completely homegrown Japanese vessel. Prior to the design of the Minekaze, Japanese engineers had pretty much just copied or improved upon existing British designs, but after several years of doing that, Japanese naval architects finally felt that they had enough confidence and experience to have a go at designing and building their own, and the Minekaze was the result. Most sources agree that 15 of these ships were built, although depending on who you ask, that number can vary wildly between 15, 24 and 36. And the reason for this discrepancy is because the Minekaze was a very, very successful design, and many other distinct classes of destroyers were heavily based on the design of the Minekaze. A lot of people consider the Mutsuki-class destroyer, which is represented here in World of Warships at Tier 6, to just be an extension of the Minekaze-class. The first of the Minekazes to enter operational service with the Imperial Japanese Navy was commissioned in May 1920. All 15 were obsolete by the outbreak of the Second World War, having been replaced in service by new designs like the special type Fubuki-class destroyers. But obsolete does not mean that the Japanese Navy didn't use them. Although they were well past their sell-by date, they were still used mostly as patrol boats, fast transports, or in the case of 2 of the Minekazes, converted to carry kamikaze torpedoes. What the hell is a kamikaze torpedo, Jingles? Well, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It was a crewed torpedo with a crew of 1 that could be steered to the target. Obviously it was a one-way mission. As second-rate destroyers, fast patrol boats and fast transport ships, most of these ships had a pretty unremarkable career during World War II. In fact, the lead ship of the class, the Minekaze herself, suffered a fate fairly typical of her sister ships. At the time of the attack on Pearl Harbor, she was based at the Chinkai Guard District in Korea, assigned to patrol the Tsushima Straits. From April 1942, she was sent to the Sasebo Naval District for patrol and convoy escort duties. She escorted convoys to Saipan, Truk and Rabaul, and from the end of November 1942 to February 1944, once again assigned to patrol and escort duties in the East China Sea. In February 1944, the Minekaze was reassigned to the 1st Surface Escort Division. 4 days after being reassigned, she departed, escorting a convoy bound for Takao. The convoy was spotted by the USS Poggy, an American submarine, off the east coast of Taiwan, and the Minekaze was torpedoed and sunk on February the 10th, 1944. This was the fate of most of the Minekaze-class destroyers. The overwhelming majority were torpedoed and sunk by American or British submarines. Only 4 of the Minekazes survived World War II. 3 of the survivors were scrapped almost immediately after the conclusion of hostilities. 1 was given as a war prize to China in 1947, where it was renamed the Shang Yang. The Shang Yang was based in Tsingtao from 1947 until the fall of Tsingtao to communist forces in the Chinese Civil War. She continued to be used by the Republic of China Navy from bases in Taiwan until 1960, when she was finally scrapped. So, the Minekaze is a class of destroyer that were considered quite technologically advanced when they were first constructed, but hopelessly obsolete by the outbreak of World War II. What are they like in World of Warships? They're a lot of fun. I arrived quite late to the Japanese destroyer party. I made it all the way down to the USS Benson at Tier 8 in the American destroyer line before I really started playing the Japanese destroyers. All I really knew about the Japanese destroyers was what I'd heard, polar opposite of the American destroyers. The American destroyers, great guns, terrible torpedoes. Japanese destroyers, terrible guns, great torpedoes. And that is pretty much the case, and it's exemplified here at Tier 5 with the Minekaze. Let's have a look at some of the stats and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Here are the Minekaze's guns. There's only really 2 things that you need to know about the guns on the Minekaze. 1, they are terrible, and 2, if you're using the guns, you're doing it wrong. What, you want more detail? Okay. Here's why the guns on the Minekaze are terrible. For a start, they have ridiculously short range, 7.6 kilometers. Now, what that 7.6 kilometer range means in practical terms, well, first we're going to take a look at the concealment factor of the ship, which is pretty good. This ship will be spotted on the surface. If it's not firing its guns and it's not obscured in a smokescreen, it will be spotted on the surface at a range of 5.9 kilometers, say, for the sake of argument, 6 kilometers. And its guns have a 7.6 kilometer range, so that's pretty bad. But what makes it worse is that if you're firing your guns, that surface detection range goes up. And what that actually means is that pretty much any time you were firing the guns on this ship, you're spotted. But that's not the worst thing about the guns. The worst thing about these guns is it takes them 45 seconds to rotate 180 degrees. There are battleships in the game that can turn their turrets faster than that. If this destroyer gets into a gunfight with any American destroyer and it can't hit them with its torpedoes, it is going to get mauled. I spend entire games never once firing the guns of this ship. The guns are that bad. On the other hand, the torpedoes are very, very good. The choice of torpedoes that you're going to use on the Minekaze is not a no-brainer. This is not one of those examples where the upgraded version is always better than the stock version. The stock Type 92 torpedoes that you get on the Minekaze have a maximum damage of 14.4 thousand. They only have a range of 7 kilometers, which is still better than most American torpedoes. But they have a very, very good speed, 68 knots. And they reload very, very quickly. You'll fire a salvo of torpedoes 1.3 times a minute from the 6 torpedo tubes, which are mounted in 3 double launchers. Now, compare that to the upgraded torpedoes. The Type 89 upgrade torpedoes are identical to the Type 92s in all but 2 respects. They do exactly the same amount of damage, they reload just as quickly, they have a longer range, 3 kilometers more. You can fire these torpedoes at a range of 10 kilometers, but have a look at the speed. That's 57 knots. That's 11 knots slower than the 68 knot speed of the Type 92s, and that's why I still use the stock torpedoes on my Minekaze rather than taking advantage of the increased range of the upgraded torpedoes. And the reason I do that is because I grew up with the American destroyers. I'm used to having torpedoes that have a 4.5 or 5.5 kilometer range, and I can make that work. And if your torpedoes are doing 68 knots when they're in the water, it gives your opponent much, much less time to react and take evasive action. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you whether you should or shouldn't use the Type 89 or Type 92 torpedoes. You're obviously going to use the torpedoes that best suit your own style of play. But what I will tell you is that coming up later on in this video, we have a replay where 2 Minekazes working together, identical in all respects except for the choice of torpedoes that they have loaded, and you'll see which one does best. But that's coming up later. For now, let's have a look at the rest of the stats of the ship. Anti-aircraft firepower. Absolutely terrible. It's basically got a couple of machine guns and one double-barrel 25mm cannon, and that's it. If you're getting dive bombed in this thing, you've done something wrong. As simple as that. Speed, however, absolutely fantastic. When they were doing the sea trials of the Minekazes, well, one of the Minekazes in particular, and this can get quite confusing because the name of this Minekaze was the Shimakaze, and that of course is the name of the Tier 10 destroyer here in World of Warships. But the Minekaze-class destroyer Shimakaze reported speeds in excess of 40 knots when it was doing its sea trials. Here in World of Warships, however, the speed of these ships is given as 39 knots, which is still stupendously quick. However, that's going in a straight line. Your speed will drop down to anything between 32 and 34 knots, which is still pretty quick when you're pulling hard turns and evasive maneuvers. The rudder shift time is amazing, 2.8 seconds. This is one of the most maneuverable ships in the game, which means that when you do end up in a gunfight with an American destroyer, you can make it very, very difficult for him to hit you while you're praying for your team to come to the rescue and blow him out of the water because your own guns are just not up to the job. So, that's everything that you need to know about the Minekaze Tier 5 Japanese destroyer, other than what it's like to play. And don't worry, I've got that covered as well. Coming up, we've got 2 replays showing me having a go in this little speed demon of a Japanese Tier 5 destroyer. First match, not bad. Second one, pretty bloody spectacular, even if I do say so myself. Well, I would say that, wouldn't I? Anyway, here we go. Let's get some games in action. So, what we got for you today is my very first and my very latest game in the Minekaze. This is a Tier 7 match. It's domination, single flag right in the centre of the map. Now, remember the surface detection range of this ship is 5.9 kilometers, providing you don't fire your guns, and the torpedoes, 7 kilometers. The first thing that you see me do is a noob mistake. That guy's in the range of my guns, and I fire at him. That's immediately given my position away to that cruiser over there. Now the only reason he's not shooting at me already is because he's been forced to turn, which is why I'm delaying my torpedo launch. He's turning away from a clutch of torpedoes launched by that friendly destroyer up ahead in that smoke screen. But when I fired my guns, I've just dropped my own smoke screen. He spotted me. He starts shooting. Now, you're not instantly hidden when you deploy a smoke screen. I've been hit. I've lost a gun turret and a torpedo launcher. I repair that. It takes time to set the smoke screen. And I hit him with one of the torpedoes. Unfortunately, now I'm leaving the protection of the smoke screen. The smoke screen's only just been set, and I've already sailed out of it, so he's picked me up again. I'm turning to try to see how slowly these gun turrets turn, and they're just about ready to fire when he opens up, so I maneuver, and he hits me with one of those shots and knocks my engine out. I have to wait 10 seconds before I can repair the engine and put that fire out. Luckily, the sudden slowing of my speed threw off his next shot. I get the engine repaired, start speeding up again, and the sudden change in speed throws off his next barrage, which was kind of lucky. I'm still trying to point the guns at him, but you can see how slowly these gun turrets turn. He completely misses with the next barrage. I actually score a couple of hits, and then somebody else sinks him. So, got away with that one. Shouldn't have. I'm pretty sure that was an Omaha shooting at me. He's got a lot of guns mounted on the side, and he was pretty unlucky that the one serious hit that he scored on me threw off the accuracy of most of his remaining shots, because I slowed down suddenly as he'd knocked my engine out, and then I repaired it and speeded up suddenly. So, well, his loss, my gain. Next up, enemy battleship, and while I'm setting up to launch my torpedoes on this guy, I stray within that 5.9 kilometer range limit, so this guy spots me. Worse than that, as I'm manoeuvring, I actually stray within the range of his secondary batteries, 5 kilometers, and they instantly automatically fire at me. They miss, which was nice, and now I've got an island between me and the battleship. There's the remnants of a friendly smoke screen up ahead. I turn hard to port to keep the island between me and the battleship so his secondaries can't shoot at me again, and that's how quickly these torpedoes move through the water. 3 hits on the battleship, devastating strike. There's my first kill. Down there we've got a tier 7 cruiser, a Minekaze. He's a good 12 kilometers away. I don't really need to worry about him yet. But up ahead I saw torpedoes in the water, and they were launched by that enemy destroyer. That's the Mutsuki, the Japanese tier 6. I know his guns are just as bad as mine, and if he's focusing on that carrier up ahead, I can start shooting at him and score some hits. Now, while I'm focusing on this guy, I completely failed to notice the dive bombers on the map that were coming over the island to my right, and just laid a stick of high explosive bombs into me. Sets me on fire again, knocks my engine out again. My engineers are going to be cursing. But I repair the damage, turn my anti-aircraft guns on, a little too late, and start putting some shots into this Mutsuki. I know it's going to take him forever to turn his guns around and start shooting at me. Shooting at him, of course, is giving my position away to him, and he will be relaying my position to that Minekaze-class cruiser, but he's a fair old distance away, and I figure it's worth the risk. I do hit this guy a couple of times. He manages to get some more torpedoes away. Friendly dive bombers are on him. There's friendly torpedo bombers putting torpedoes in the water against him, and he's got a Cleveland-class cruiser shooting at him, so he doesn't last too long at all. Now, myself and the Cleveland can turn our attention to this Minekaze. Tier 7 Japanese cruiser. Normally, I'd put my money on the Cleveland, because the Cleveland's fantastic, but the Minekaze's a pretty good ship as well, and it's got bigger guns than the Cleveland, even if it doesn't have as many of them. It's also got torpedoes in its tail, and I believe the torpedoes have a 10-kilometer range. Now, Jingles, do not shoot at this guy. Just get within 7 kilometers and launch your torpedoes. And this time I'm a good boy, and that's exactly what I do, but I do make one big mistake. He's in range, I fire the torpedoes, and I drop my smoke screen. At no point did I stray within 5.9 kilometers of that guy, and I never fired my guns at him, so I did not need to use the smoke screen. There was nothing else there spotting me, there were no enemy aircraft giving my position away to him. I didn't need to use the smoke screen. And the Minekaze captain knows what he's doing. He saw the smoke screen. He knows there's not just a Cleveland out there. He is now slowing, and he is turning, And every single one of those torpedoes is going to miss. And they're going to miss because I dropped a smoke screen when I didn't need to. But the torpedoes on the Minekaze reload so quickly, I can just go around for another go. But I do need to worry about which way this Cleveland's going to turn. Please turn the other way. Yep, he is. Okay, it's safe to launch. Now I am within 5.9 kilometers of this Miyoko. And I'm outside of the smoke screen that I just dropped. So he is going to have seen me. So I lose absolutely nothing by shooting at him here. He's still focusing on the Cleveland. Carrier's just launched torpedoes at him. I think one of those hits. Yep, there you go. There's one torpedo hit. And that torpedo knocked out his engines. So he's trying to turn, but he doesn't have the speed. And there's my second devastating strike. A tier 7 cruiser kill, my second kill of the game. Another 2 torpedo hits. And while that was going on, while we were killing that one destroyer and that one cruiser, the rest of the enemy team has just died. All they have left is one destroyer. And I've got a pretty good idea where he is. Because he's capping. He may as well. I was telling the team, guys, just cap. It's a destroyer. We're never going to... Oh, he's in the cap circle. Oh, fair enough. If you're going to just wave a flag, say, here I am, come and kill me. We are only too happy to oblige. And if you have a look at the map, we're actually closing on him from all points of the compass. He's been lit up by 2 of our destroyers who are exchanging fire. You can see over there in the cap circle, you can see the shots going in and out, even though I can't actually see him yet. Oh, there he is. He's just popped into range. Well, he's not in range, but he's in view. And, well, I won't bother drawing this out. He doesn't last very long. And so this was the result of this, my first game in the Minekaze. Not a spectacular result by any stretch of the imagination, but good enough to finish top of the team. So very happy with that, my first tryout in the Minekaze. The next match that I'm going to show you is the latest game that I played in the Minekaze. This match is 1 day old. And it's a bit of a celebrity death match. 2 Minekazes enter, only one will leave. This is a tier 5 match and I'm playing with Rita Gamer. We're both in the Minekaze, and the only difference between our 2 ships is I have the stock 7km range torpedoes and she has the upgraded 10km range torpedoes. My torpedoes will travel at a speed of 68 knots and hers will only travel at a speed of 57 knots. And this match perfectly illustrates the reason why I still use the stock 7km range torpedoes on my Minekaze rather than switching to the enhanced range torpedoes, which will fire out to a range of 10 kilometers. It's because of the speed difference between the two. That's an 11 knot difference in speed, and you're going to see in this match exactly why that can be important. Now, obviously this is not necessarily going to work for you. Remember, I come to the Japanese destroyers from an American destroyer background, so I am perfectly used to having to close to suicide range before I can fire torpedoes off. I'm just used to playing like that because I've played American destroyers. Having torpedoes that have a range of 7 kilometers is a bit of a luxury for me. Rita could not understand why I would continue to use these torpedoes when I could be firing from a range of 10 kilometers, and the reason is the speed. 68 knots is very, very quick, and if I'm launching from a closer range anyway, with much, much faster torpedoes, it gives the opponent so little time to react that you have a much, much higher chance of scoring a kill. But for the moment, we've got some aircraft to worry about. Now, I do not have situational awareness, World of Warships version of 6th Sense. I do not know if I've been spotted by those dive bombers. The smoke screen has been laid, but it has not yet been set. And yeah, it turns out well, that's one way of finding out whether or not you've been spotted by the dive bombers. So I've been hit. I've had to repair my engine. But I took a lot of damage. I wouldn't go so far as to say I got away with it, but if the dive bombers saw me, the ships behind them saw me as well. So I am pulling some hard evasive maneuvers, and I think I did stray outside the cap circle. Back in the safety of the smoke screen. We've got an enemy cruiser up ahead. It looks like he's, judging by the way I think he's turning. He is turning. Yep. You can tell by the way your torpedo aim indicator is rapidly changing direction that the target that you're aiming at is in a hard turn. So I wait for him to steady out. I'm still inside the smoke screen. Rita has already launched her torpedoes from further away. And I can't even fire yet because that island is square in my line of fire. He's seen me, he's hit me, he's set me on fire. Rita's torpedoes have been in the water for at least 15 seconds. I get mine away, turn around, get the hell out of there, put the fire out, take another hit. I've now lost 2 of my gun turrets, but I don't care because I didn't plan on using them anyway. And bingo, there goes one Yubari-class cruiser. 2 hits, devastating strike, first blood, first kill of the game. I have to give a shout out, by the way, to our carrier drivers. One of them ended up with a Clear Sky award. Fantastic job of keeping the air above us, at least later on in the game. Clear of enemy torpedo bombers and dive bombers. So, aside from that initial dive bomber strike, we were pretty much left to our own devices. Now, enemy battleships. They've got a Congo and 2 New Yorks. 3 enemy battleships up ahead. We finally managed to cap B. The enemy team are making an effort at capturing A and C, but we are ahead on points thanks to the kills. We've nailed 2 cruisers, and we fancy ourselves some nice, fat, juicy American destroyer ass. Now, remember the magic numbers. 5.9 kilometer detection range. I have to get within 7 kilometers to launch my torpedoes. Rita can fire them off from a range of 10. Now, here's the thing. Aside from the longer range, Rita's 10 kilometer but slower torpedoes do have one other advantage. My torpedoes are so fast that I just can't launch them at this New York class battleship yet. Rita, on the other hand, her torpedoes are going to take so much longer to get there that she can already put her fish in the water, and I have to wait for this guy. There they go. And I have to wait for this guy to pop out, be reacquired. There he is, and now I can launch my torpedoes. So her torpedoes had a clear head start over mine, and yet mine are still going to get there first. Watch this. Oh, he's seen us. Here it comes. Yeah, and I do take another hit, of course. But we're back in the safety of the smoke screen. We look back, we can no longer see the battleship, which is good because that means he can no longer see us. And any second now, here come my torpedoes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits. And that was a full health New York class tier 5 battleship. And he is not very happy with us right now. And oh look, Rita has launched again. And I'm not even reloaded yet. And now I am reloaded, and I still don't have a line of fire. There we go, torpedoes away. Turn once again. I don't want to get too close to this guy. He's already indicated by taking off a chunk of my health that he doesn't like me very much. So, and I don't want to get any close. No, that's okay. Those torpedo bombers are heading away. Smoke is laid. Yeah, you can quite clearly see that once again my torpedoes have overtaken hers, and this guy's seen me again, and I'm hit again. Oh, and they've all missed. Every single one of them missed. That's the thing about the American battleships. They are a lot more maneuverable than the Japanese battleships. So they are far better at dodging torpedoes if they see them coming. But, once again, I am reloaded. Rita already has torpedoes in the water long before I am able to draw a bead on this guy. I launch 3 spreads of 2 torpedoes each. And now all I have to do is twiddle my thumbs and stay in the safety of the smoke screen. Let's not get any closer to that guy. He's obviously got his guns pointed in our direction, just waiting for us to pop up so he can finish the job. And he's managed to avoid all of Rita's torpedoes. He's not going to avoid mine. Any second now. Getting ready to fire again just in case, but nah, there you go. One more hit was all it took. And there's my second kill, an American Tier 5 battleship. Now that over there is a Yubari-class cruiser. I'm still in the smoke screen when I fire, although I am within his detection range, and around about now is when I pop out of the smoke screen. Now he has detected me, but he's not paying attention. Those guys over there, on the other hand, are. And there goes the Yubari. And any second now I'm going to take some more incoming fire. So my third kill. Ooh, there it is. Missed. Ah, nice try. Now my torpedoes are almost reloaded already. And yeah, that's a Congo over there, and he's definitely seen me. So he's just fired his main guns. I'm going to use this island to keep my approach masked from him and get close enough to launch. You see, these are American destroyer tactics. You'll see Rita never does this. She always stays outside of detection range and launches from more than 7 or 8 kilometers away. I don't do that because my torpedoes only have a 7-kilometer range. So I'm using these islands. There's a New York and a Congo over there. They're both on full health. Now what I'm going to do here, I've strayed within detection range of that Congo, but it's okay. He's just fired his guns and his secondaries are too far away to hit me. I'm going to put 2 spreads of torpedoes into the Congo and 1 spread of torpedoes into the New York. And there they go. And then I start maneuvering. The New York, of course, was waiting for me to pop into line of fire. Kind of miscalculated there. And he finishes me off. But I managed to get all of my torpedoes away. There they go. Remember, these guys are both on full health. There's the health bars. And boom. And a couple of air-launched torpedoes go in and score a hit as well. There's the high caliber reward. And Rita's torpedoes sail harmlessly by. Up until the point where I died, Rita had not scored a single torpedo hit against any of these enemy ships. She was consistently launching her torpedoes earlier than I was. She could, because she can fire them from 10 kilometers away. But my torpedoes were just getting there faster than hers. That's the difference in speed between these two different torpedo tube launchers. Well, it's not the torpedo tube launchers, it's the torpedoes themselves, the Type 89 and the Type 92. The Type 92 is just so much faster than the Type 89. But she does get her moment to shine now, using a typical traditional Japanese destroyer tactics. Look at the health bars on those guys. She's launched at the New York, and she's varied the spread to try to take into account any sudden course changes that this guy makes, if he sees the torpedoes in the water. The Congo's shooting at somebody behind us, and there's 1 hit, there's 2 hits. She's killed the New York. So there's her first kill, and her first 2 torpedo hits. But now her tubes are loaded again, and this time she's putting all 3 into the Congo. Now, look how far away that Congo is, and look at the angle that she's had to launch those torpedoes in order to intersect his course. I'm going to have to ramble on a bit now because it's going to take so long for those torpedoes to get there. It's almost an entire minute between Rita launching and Rita's torpedoes intersecting the course of that Congo. An entire minute in which that Congo just had to change course once rather than sailing in a straight line for a minute. And not one of these torpedoes were going to hit. Look, they're still going. Of course, the other downside is that in the length of time it takes for her torpedoes to get there, this guy loses almost all of his health. And there it is. Rita steals the kill on the Congo. So 2 or 3 torpedo hits, 2 kills, a Congo and a New York. Basically clearing up after me. And that's your choice. That's your choice in the Minekaze. Are you going to use the Type 89 or the Type 92 torpedoes? With the Type 92s, the stock torpedoes, they only have a 7-kilometer range, but they travel through the water at a speed of 68 knots. If you upgrade, and I use the word upgrade in quotation marks, to the Type 89s, you get a 10-kilometer range, but the torpedoes crawl through the water. So the choice is, do you want to live a life of action and adventure on the high seas? Then you stick with the stock torpedoes. But if you prefer your traditional you can't see me Japanese destroyer tactics, then upgrade to the Type 89s. Unfortunately, I did not record this match live. You're watching a replay, and I didn't do a print screen of the battle results. But I can tell you that, as well as the high caliber, 2 devastating strikes and the first blood award, that was 133,000 torpedo damage in 16 torpedo hits in the Minekaze Tier 5 Japanese destroyer. This ship is a sleek grey missionary of death praying for war. I think it is absolutely fantastic. It's a hell of a lot of fun to drive. It's more fun if you go with the shorter range torpedoes, I have to be completely honest. It's a lot safer if you go with the longer range torpedoes. But it's nowhere near as exciting or interesting. So that was the Minekaze Japanese Tier 5 destroyer. I hope you enjoyed this review. I have no idea what shape this destroyer is going to be in when patch 0.4.1 comes out. It's currently on test. But they'd have to do well, they'd have to do an awful lot to make this ship suck. It is a fantastic ship. I have had so much fun playing it, and I'm sure you guys will too. As always, folks, take care, and I'll catch you next time.